pray my Lord my soul to keep. If I should die.
Let me see the pleasure in your eyes. So everybody know if I say it, I'm to death. I like the public, you feel me?
Yeah.
So can't say nothing about it.
Aaron Hall was the most feared singer of his time. A voice powerful enough to define an era, yet a reputation forever marked by turbulence and controversy. From being accused of impregnating 16-year-old Gloria Velez.
When I saw her, she was dancing with Luke and them. I didn't know she was a puppy, you know what I mean?
That's right.
She was tall, she was big, blonde hair, bone with the black pant leather. I was like, I'm getting that. So I just went there and just grabbed her hand and went inside the hotel and gave it to her. You feel me?
To his volatile relationship with dancehall star Patra that drew whispers of control and chaos, and even a criminal assault conviction that sentenced him to 5 years probation and anger management. Now, here is the kicker. In November 2023, Aaron Hall faced a serious legal issue when a lawsuit was filed against him and Sean "Diddy" Combs. The lawsuit said that back in the early 90s, the two men took turns sexually assaulting a woman and her friend after an industry event. These claims were shocking, and since Diddy's name was also involved, the story quickly made headlines. Because of this, people started talking about Hall's personal life all over again. Hall even claimed Diddy watched him have S with women.
How I like you speak to Jodeci or Puffy or any of them niggas, they been at my house, they all see me they all know I'm a big nigga.
Yeah.
After the news broke, many fans went back to listen to Hall's music, especially his 1992 song, Don't Be Afraid. Some of the lyrics, like, "All the doors are locked, baby, and I got you inside," caught people's attention. On social media, users argued about whether these words showed his real behavior or were just lyrics for a song. This created a big discussion online, with many opinions, mixed views, and even heavy criticism. This controversy mattered a lot because it connected to Hall's past. The lawsuit didn't come out of nowhere. It reminded people of his older controversies, interviews, and legal troubles. This made the case feel even bigger, as it seemed to show a repeated pattern around him. It also raised larger questions about the music industry itself, especially how fame and power can tie into serious claims of misconduct. The public reacted strongly in different ways. News outlets, forums, and social media were filled with debates, guesses, and outrage. Many people went back to review Hall's past relationships, actions, and old statements. In the end, this lawsuit became a way for people to re-examine both his career and his personal history, showing how his past and present problems connect. As we move forward into Aaron Hall's story, we've already seen how his past has caused public debate. But if you think that's intense, the next part is even more serious. This time, the spotlight shines brighter, with new claims that pushed him right back into controversy. Let's dig into that next. Back in the mid-1980s, Aaron Hall, then in his 30s, met Gloria Velez. She was just 16. Not long after, she became pregnant and gave birth at 17. The age difference alone was enough to make their story headline news, but the circumstances made it even more intense. Everyone was talking, friends, neighbors, and the media. Their lives suddenly felt like public property. Their relationship was far from smooth. Gloria would later call Aaron a deadbeat dad and accuse him of physical abuse. Aaron denied it. Arguments over custody and support played out in courts and tabloids, making their private struggles public. It was messy, and it painted a complicated picture of a man who was both a musical star and, to some, a volatile figure. Then, years later, an old interview surfaced. Aaron described how he had met Gloria.
When I saw her, she was dancing with Luke and them. I didn't know she was a puppy, you know what I mean?
That's right.
She was tall, she was big, blonde hair, bone with the black pant leather. I was like, I'm getting that. Just asked them how I did it. I got out the limo, grabbed her hand, and went upstairs and
Many listeners were shocked by the details. Online forums buzzed with outrage, and social media filled with debates about ethics and legality. People called it grooming, and the story cemented itself as one of the most controversial chapters of his life. Even so, the story didn't end there. Time brought some change. Gloria said that things had improved. She shared that Aaron apologized to her and their son. Now, he played a positive role in the family, even stepping into the grandfather role responsibly.
So I want to say this in response to that we're in a better place now. He apologized to me and my son. He's great to my son, and now we have a grandchild, and he's a great grandfather.
This chapter of Aaron Hall's life is tense, messy, and very human. It's a story of youthful mistakes, public scrutiny, and the long shadow of controversy. And while it shows a darker side of his past, it also sets the stage for the next part of his life. His brushes with the law and the incidents that made people see him as both talented and feared. While his relationship with Gloria Velez exposed one side of Aaron Hall's personal life, it was far from the whole story. Just a few years later, his behavior brought him into the legal spotlight in a much more serious way. Hall faced assault charges that would mark another dramatic chapter in his life, showing the public just how volatile and unpredictable he could be. A few years after the controversies with Gloria Velez, Aaron Hall's life took another sharp and public turn. In 1996, he pled guilty to assault charges after physically hitting an ex-girlfriend. The case put him directly in the public eye and under intense scrutiny. The court sentenced him to 5 years of probation and ordered 2 years of anger management. Violations of probation landed him in Rikers Island for 11 months, showing how serious the charges were. At the same time, the conviction confirmed what many had long suspected about Hall. His reputation for aggression and volatility was no longer just a rumor. It was documented in legal records. People saw the incident as evidence of his behavior toward women, and it reinforced the idea that his personal life was as intense as his music career. Even during this low point, Hall showed resilience. He later said, "I came out of prison, came 5,000 miles away with no money, and made it again." The words reflected both the challenges he faced and his determination to rebuild his life despite serious setbacks.
You know, I felt like the Hulk. I felt like I could come from New York, from Rikers Island, being in prison, come out of prison, come 5,000 miles away with no money, and make it again?
As a result, the incident affected how the public viewed Hall. Fans, critics, and online communities often reference this episode when discussing his reputation. His musical talent was undeniable, but his behavior created a complicated image. Admiration mixed with concern. The assault made Hall a figure that people watched closely, and it showed that his personal life could be as dramatic and unpredictable as the songs he sang. Over time, the events shaped Hall's interactions in the music industry and with the media. Every interview, appearance, and meeting carried the weight of his past. People were alert to his words and actions, often reading them through the lens of what had happened. It highlighted a tension between Hall's remarkable musical talent and the personal struggles that seemed to follow him. The conviction became part of the story people told about him, a story of both skill and volatility, leaving a lasting mark on how he was perceived. Then, Aaron Hall started to stand out in a different way. People knew him for his music, for his talent, but now he was becoming known for his behavior in public. Interviews and appearances on Vlad TV and other platforms went viral. Fans and critics watched and talked about every word he said. His tone, his expressions, the way he spoke. It all made him unpredictable and hard to ignore.
Can't no bitch out there say that she handled my shit. My father's a pastor, so my whole thing is that my grandfather being a pimp, it's just like I'm third generation Aaron Hall III. My father's.
And he didn't hold back when talking about other artists. He called the dream fat. He said R. Kelly stole his swag. He even called Teddy Riley, his own bandmate, a square and an infection.
I'm like square niggas would try to say some square shit. Behind the you can say Aaron Hall's a diva, bitch. You feel me? Like, I ain't gonna say nothing about anybody because square niggas got a infection on them already. You feel me?
That's
so
right.
real street.
Then he added that Riley took like $18 million of my money. People reacted fast. Fans argued online. Some thought he was just bold. Others thought he was unstable. It showed that his unpredictability was not just in his personal life. It followed him into work, interviews, and public spaces.
Teddy Riley took like $18 million of my money. I don't give a you feel me? Because I love his kids and his mother and his, you know, and his brother and everything like that, and his sister and everything like that. I refuse to have people give the green light to get him.
So, Hall tried other things that added to his public image. In 2009, he made a video vlog called Aaron Hall's Dog Rehab. It was meant to be funny. He gave strange advice about relationships. People watched, laughed, or shook their heads. It made him seem eccentric, unusual, and unpredictable. His personality was becoming part of his story, as much as his music.
I studied a whole lot. I couldn't even say my name, and God so happened to give me a gift to understand dogs and dog understand.
Then, all of this shaped how people saw him. Fans admired his talent, but they also noticed the way he acted. Every interview, every comment, every appearance added to the picture of a man who could be both brilliant and unpredictable. People talked about him, shared clips, and watched closely to see what he would do next.
The whole thing is that I like to do songs about because that keeps from doing violence.
That's right.
And
Now, people started paying closer attention to Aaron Hall's music. His 1992 song, Don't Be Afraid, came back into focus. Lines like, all the doors are locked, baby, and I got you inside, and you can yell and you can hit me. It Just Makes Me Horny caught listeners' attention in a new way. Critics and fans debated whether the words were just storytelling or if they reflected something deeper about Hall's personal life. And Hall spoke openly about his songwriting. He once said, "How I will fuck a bitch is how I'm gonna sing it." Fans argued that his lyrics were artistic expression, a way to create stories in his music. Others felt the words offered a glimpse into his mindset at the time. The debate added another layer to how people understood him, not just as a singer, but as a complex figure whose art and life were intertwined. So, the focus on his lyrics grew. People began to connect the lines in his songs to the controversies and public behavior they had already seen. Interviews, viral clips, and past incidents made listeners question if the music was purely fiction or a reflection of real experiences. The words in his songs now felt like another piece of the larger story of Aaron Hall, one that combined talent, personality, and controversy. Then, scrutiny of his music shaped how people talked about him publicly. Fans, critics, and online communities debated and dissected every lyric. Each song, each line was examined through the lens of his personal history. Music that once entertained now carried extra weight, making listeners look for clues about the man behind the voice. And people began to see Aaron Hall's music and his life as one whole story. Each song felt like a glimpse into who he was, his talent, his struggles, and the controversies that seemed to follow him everywhere. Fans and critics alike couldn't separate the singer from the man. Every lyric, every note seemed to tell a piece of his story, showing a person who was talented, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore.
They say Aaron Hall drunk. Yeah, I get drunk. I get fucked up.
Then, people began noticing another side of Aaron Hall's life. Beyond his public controversies, music, and lyrics, there were hints of personal struggles that he kept mostly private. Reports suggested that he dealt with substance use, turning to alcohol and possibly other substances as a way to cope with anger, stress, and the pressures of his life. It painted a picture of someone trying to manage the difficulties he faced behind closed doors. And Hall spoke openly about some of these struggles. He admitted to drinking heavily at home and acknowledged that his family had a history with drugs and alcohol. Growing up in a household affected by substance use, he said, shaped the way he handled challenges. He also mentioned understanding the struggles of others, like Lamar Odom, because of his own experiences growing up in a troubled environment. This honesty offered a rare glimpse into the factors that might have influenced his behavior, both in public and private. So, these personal struggles began to make sense within the larger story of his life. His occasional volatility, erratic public appearances, and intense relationships could now be seen alongside the pressures and coping mechanisms he relied on. Substance use wasn't an excuse, but it added context to the decisions and actions that people had been watching for decades. Fans and critics could begin to see how the personal and the public sides of Hall intertwined, forming a complex and sometimes troubled narrative. Then, his struggles with substance use became part of how people understood him. Even if not every claim was fully verified, the patterns were clear. Alcohol and other coping mechanisms became a way to deal with trauma, anger, and frustration. It added a layer of depth to a story that had often focused only on talent, controversy, or public statements. Hall's challenges showed that behind the strong voice and confident persona, there were private battles that shaped his life and actions. And this part of his story set the stage for understanding the events that followed. Public controversies, legal issues, and scrutiny of his music all happened alongside these personal struggles. Substance use, coping with anger, and dealing with past trauma became threads woven into the larger narrative of Aaron Hall, a man whose life, talent, and choices were deeply connected, and whose story was as complicated as it was compelling. Then, looking at Aaron Hall's early trauma and struggles, it becomes easier to see why his life later unfolded the way it did. Surviving a shooting and a stabbing, and losing his mother in a sudden accident on Christmas Day, left marks that reached far beyond childhood. These experiences shaped the way he reacted to conflict, the way he managed anger, and even the way he interacted with others, both personally and professionally.
My mother got hit by a drunk driver on Christmas morning. How in the fuck you supposed to tell your whole fucking...
And understanding these early hardships helps connect the dots between his personal controversies, legal issues, and public behavior. His life was not just a series of headlines or shocking moments. Each incident, from erratic interviews to strained relationships, can be traced back to a foundation of loss, trauma, and survival. It gives the story of Aaron Hall more depth and a clearer sense of why he became the person the public saw. So, after tracing his challenges, controversies, and personal struggles, it feels natural to step back and look at where it all began, his early life and rise in music. Before the lawsuits, the public disputes, and the viral interviews, Aaron Hall was first a young man finding his voice, learning his craft, and stepping into the world of R&B with ambition and talent. Born on August 10, 1964, in the Bronx, New York, Aaron Hall grew up in a household that was both deeply musical and deeply troubled. His father was a minister and his mother was a gospel singer, which meant that music was a constant presence. The sound of church choirs, spiritual hymns, and soulful melodies filled his early life. Yet alongside this musical foundation, Aaron also witnessed hardship. His family struggled with poverty, and the loss of his mother in such a tragic way left a wound that never truly healed. As a boy, Hall found refuge in singing. The church was his first stage, a place where his booming, emotional voice caught attention even at a young age. He was drawn to gospel not just as music, but as a form of expression, a way of channeling both his faith and his pain. This early grounding in gospel would shape his vocal style forever, passionate, commanding, and emotionally raw. By his teenage years, Hall had started to dream bigger. Inspired by R&B greats like Sam Cooke and Donny Hathaway, he wanted to bring the same intensity of gospel into secular music. His journey wasn't straightforward. He faced rejection, uncertainty, and the weight of his past. But what kept him moving was his undeniable gift, a voice that could shift from tender vulnerability to thunderous power within a single verse. The turning point came when Hall crossed paths with Teddy Riley, the young producer who was pioneering a fresh sound that would come to be known as New Jack Swing. Riley was experimenting with blending R&B vocals with hip-hop beats, and he needed voices that could carry his vision. Hall was a perfect fit. Alongside Riley and fellow singer Timmy Gatling, Aaron Hall became a founding member of Guy, one of the most iconic groups of the late 1980s. Guy's debut album in 1988 was nothing short of groundbreaking. Songs like Groove Me and Teddy's Jam redefined the sound of R&B, and Aaron Hall's vocals stood at the center of it all. His ability to deliver raw passion gave Guy its edge. Fans weren't just listening, they were feeling his voice. Behind the scenes, Aaron was still wrestling with personal demons, but on stage and on record, he was electric. The success of Guy catapulted Hall into stardom. He became known not only for his voice, but for his stage presence, his signature style, and his unmistakable charisma. By the early 1990s, he had carved out a solo career, releasing hits like Don't Be Afraid and I Miss You. These songs showcase the full range of his artistry, sensual, heartfelt, and unrelentingly emotional. What made Hall's rise remarkable was not just the music, but the journey it represented. He had gone from the streets of the Bronx, through personal trauma and struggle, to the top of the R&B charts. His early pain and church training gave him a depth that few artists could replicate, and it became both his strength and his burden. Looking back, Aaron Hall's career rise wasn't simply about hit records. It was about resilience. It was about transforming hardship into art and using music as both shield and sword. His legacy is not only the sound he helped shape, but the proof that talent, even when tested by life's darkest turns, can still break through and shine. Aaron Hall remains a figure defined by contradiction. His voice both a gift and an outlet for pain. His career both celebrated and shadowed. But at the heart of it all lies a man who turned his beginnings into something unforgettable. The story of an R&B legend who sang his truth, no matter how complicated it was.